if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your sickness. And, that's how you and I went through it. But feeling like how it feels to be good, you're not numb in the corporate chaos. And most people feel like how they feel every single day. It's that little carrot of retirement. And I'm just like, why don't we just kind of live life now? Like the carrot of let's kill ourselves until we're 65 and then we can chill. No. That's not why we're here.
On today's episode of Empowered in Health, I have Lynn Everhart here, and Lynn and I have connected recently in a business mentorship that we're both doing, and I cannot get enough of the work that Lynn is doing because we are very aligned in how we serve in the women's health space, serve women in business, talk about this idea of working with your biology or physiology. And Lynn is going to share her heart about all those things today. So Lynn, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Erin, thank you so much. I'm so excited about our convo.
I know it's going to be good. And, we were even kind of just riffing and chatting here before we talked or before we hit record. And there's just a lot that we need to continue to learn and unlearn and grow into as women. And this idea of really working with your biology, because it's not the common narrative. It's not the thing that we hear or learn the most, which is why I'm so enamored by the work you're doing and the way that you're serving in women in business, right? So I'd love to kind of start there, Lynn. Tell me a little bit about kind of how you started to pivot into the work you're doing and this idea of really educating and empowering and teaching women to work with their biology.
So it started when I opened up an office for an engineering firm in Philadelphia. And it was a great opportunity. It was hustle bustle, all the things. And I really wanted to prove myself. And, I had these strategies and these plans and things to do. But when you put the plan together, you have to own it. You have to be the one that does it all, right? Or at least I thought.
Yeah.
So really diving into like, okay, how do I make this work? I don't want to let anybody down. I want to do a really good job. Putting a lot of that pressure on yourself. And for me, I remember I woke up one morning and I had a Fortune 500 presentation, and it was with this client that I've been trying to get for so long. Yeah. And I look in the mirror and I have hives and welts all over my face. Oh and I'm like, wonderful. Yeah. How am I going to do this presentation? And it took so long. I'm like, I can't cancel. Like, I have to go. And I always say, like, first the universe gives you little pebbles and then they give you little stones. And that was definitely my boulder moment. Like, there were a lot of looking back symptoms along the way that I had and things that I just suppressed because it was like, go, 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 hustle, 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 make things work. And just vowing that day that I'm going to make a change. Like, yeah, sure, you got to go do the presentation. And yes, I did get the client, which is awesome. But I knew it wasn't sustainable and I had to figure out the why behind it. Yeah. I remember going to different doctors, like Ivy League doctors, and saying, hey, why am I getting these welts? Why am I getting these hives? Why do my hands look like Mickey Mouse gloves? Yeah. And them not having any answers for me and just saying, here's some prednisone, have a nice life, which was scary. Right. And so I started really doing some research on my own. I actually took an 18-month wellness course that was at 9:00 at night with international students because I wanted to hold myself accountable to getting the answers to what's the end of it. And what I really discovered is that our bodies are systems, and it's all interconnected. So Western medicine kind of compartmentalizes us, and they don't, look at us as a whole body. And when I started looking at that a little differently, I was like, okay, how can I apply these things that I'm learning in this course on myself? I started seeing some changes by eating differently, eating for my bio-individuality, learning what serves me, didn't serve me. My brain fog started getting, less. And I noticed at work, I showed up different as a leader. I didn't have that manic energy, that desperate vibe. Like, I was like, okay, I'm actually feeling good in myself. And I feel like I'm operating the way I'm supposed to. And I'm thinking so much clearer. Yeah. And that's when I realized, I'm like, okay, if I can integrate this in the way that I work and help other people do it. I had other women that were high performers as well asking me, what are you doing different? How are you doing this?
Yeah.
And just started sharing with them. And that's kind of how I broke into it.
I love how you have kind of gone through it, right? And we've talked about this, like we've both gone through it, which is why our passion runs so deep, because we want to like scream from the rooftops how women need this permission around working with what your biology uniquely needs. And I love that you said the word bio-individuality. That's like my jam. I love talking about bio-individuality and how each and every single one of us is so incredibly unique, from what we love to do, to how we work, to how we show up, to what our body needs, to how like nutrition fuels us best. Like everything is so unique to each of us. And we really haven't been educated enough about how much that actually matters, especially for us as women. And so I just appreciate you sharing your story and talking about kind of what you've gone through, because women need to hear this idea of, I hit this boulder moment and I knew that something had to change. Like I couldn't continue on. And that was the same as me. Like I had a boulder moment and I knew like there had to be a better way. Like I knew I wasn't on the right path. I wasn't getting the answers I needed. I wasn't functioning the way I wanted to, but I knew there had to be a better way. And so I just appreciate you sharing that, Lynn, because again, women need to hear it, you know?
Yeah. And I think that the common thread too is a lot of the industries, most industries are male dominated, right? And I love men. I'm married to a man. It's not about that.
Yeah.
But we're kind of conditioned in a work environment to follow the same pattern as the most likely male leaders, right? In whatever industry we're in. And what we're doing is moving further away from our feminine intuition.
Yep.
And so if you sit and really listen to the body, just like you teach, you know, you tap in and you start getting some magic, asking some questions. But the power of the pause and creating spaciousness, that's where the juiciness really starts.
Yes, 100%. And so let's talk a little bit about what this looks like, right? What this looks like. You've learned the way of like what didn't work and how you were showing up and your boulder moment. So let's talk about what it actually looks like. Because I think for women, this is hard, right? We think we have to function and do things a specific way in order to be successful, in order to be seen, in order to earn a seat at the table, or whatever the narrative is that we've told ourselves. So let's talk about what the shifting is. Talk about what you've changed and talk about this idea of working with your biology and what that really means in a leadership environment and in a work environment for you.
So I think let's start with calendars, because that represents our time, right? And that's our greatest asset. And I was finding for me, I was slinging myself in the car at 6 a.m, driving to the city to quote unquote beat traffic. And I was on calls from like 8 to 5. And then my day truly started after that. And I think a lot of your audience could resonate with that, right? Like you are serving everybody else during the day, whether it's the clients or your staff. And then really the strategy work, the things that make you an exceptional leader, you don't really have time to do it unless it's after hours or on weekends. And I knew that that had to stop because I was reacting to leadership. I was not being intentional with it. And it wasn't just hurting myself, it was hurting my staff, everybody. And so the first thing that I did is really dug into my chronotype. And for me, there's 4 chronotypes. And actually, I have a quiz that your audience can take to figure out for free, like what their chronotype is, which is kind of fun.
Love that.
And so depending on what chronotype you are, not everybody's wired the same. It's kind of similar to not everybody's a morning person. Some people are night owls. And giving myself permission to step away from the corporate chaos where I have to do it just like everybody else. I'm not a morning person. My chronotype's a bear. I don't mind getting up and maybe doing a low impact task, you know what I mean, for work, but don't put me in a presentation before 10. I just won't shine as well, right? So knowing that my superpowers were between 10 and 2 really helped me rejigger where I was spending my time on my calendar, right? Having harder conversations with staff or really having to concentrate on a proposal or presentation or anything like that. I kind of really rearranged what I would do. And then also putting the boundaries on Monday and Friday. Like, Do I really have to have a packed calendar on Monday? And having that voice of like, you don't need to give people the reason why you're not available, but you should know what your calendar is and have boundaries on your calendar so that not everybody needs 100% access to you. You need space. You need space to lead. The time audit was huge. Really understanding I have blocks on my calendar for when I'm doing business development activities versus when I'm doing meetings. And we work as a team around that. We honor everyone's chronotype, and that works really well because there is a lot of overlap during the day. So it's not like you won't have connection, but it's really saying, giving people permission to be themselves. And actually, you're creative, resourceful, and whole. You're an adult. Manage your tasks around and work with your biology to do it. Another thing is food. We talk about, food is information, and really understanding the power of what is at the end of your fork and how you are firing on all cylinders during the day. I was finding for myself, it's kind of funny, yes, I had like the hives and the welts, but I was eating things like strawberries and avocados. I thought that was a healthy food, Erin. I mean, and most people would agree they are. But for my biology, they have high histamine. I never understood that food had histamine. And so I'm sitting there eating, thinking I'm doing something right for my body and really just not feeling like my best self or looking like my best self. And so understanding, okay, I'm not saying don't ever have something that brings you joy, like a pizza every once in a while. But if you know that you're going to get brain fog from cheese or dairy, or it's going to make you stutter. I mean, some foods made me stutter. It was weird. Don't eat it before you have a major event. Like wait till after. So work with it, right? So food definitely is huge, and then restoration. I feel a lot of women feel guilty about taking time off or putting space in their calendar to rest and recharge. And to me, I mean, it's that analogy of the oxygen mask when you're on a plane. It says to put it on you first. It doesn't say put it on the person next to you. And I think we need to lean into that more. We're not putting ourselves first, and we need to get over that stigma.
Yeah. Where do you think that guilt comes from? Like, why is it so hard for women? Because I mean, I have felt this 100% in my own journey. I'm sure you did too at some point. And I talk to women daily who just feel like they have to be holding all the things on track all the time for everybody. And when it comes to like that pause and reflection for themselves, it's like, oh gosh, but I can't, but I don't have time, but I don't want to, but that would take away from XYZ. Like, where does that come from?
I think divine wiring. We're, as women, we're wired to be the one that's like holding it together and making sure everyone's comforted and feeling like they're, knowing what they're supposed to do and taken care of. And so we transcend that into business a lot because we want to make sure all the little duckies are in a row and everybody's happy and we don't want to rock any boats. I do think that there's that water cooler badge, oh, I worked the whole weekend, and you're expecting like an atta girl out of it. And, it's just like nothing, you know what I mean? So a lot of that, I feel also trying to be equal and not really embracing your femininity and saying we are different than men and it's okay to approach business differently. And that also includes how we go about our day to perform what we're hired to do. Yes. Right. And so we're constantly seeing, maybe folks that are at a similar level as us and not understanding how we can stand out more. And that grasp makes it worse because we're letting go of putting ourselves first.
So much truth. And, I think one of the things that I've continued to learn, especially with the changing in working environment, right? Like there's a lot of flexibility in working environments now, post 2020, all the things, which I think is a gift. And I also think it's kind of a curse. And like you talked a little bit about like actually taking the time off that you have and giving yourself space and time. And one of the things I've had to learn on my own journey and what I want to really make sure comes through in this message is this concept of like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. What I mean by that is like, just because you can work from anywhere and plug in at any point in time and try to do XYZ at any hour of the day doesn't mean that you should, and doesn't mean that you should feel obligated to either. right? And I think that's one of those things where we have to be mindful of what is the soundtrack that I've kind of told myself about what I have to do or should do in order to show up for my work, show up for my life, etc. And what's really out of alignment that actually doesn't serve me at all, that I need to start to move away from in order to actually make sure I'm nurturing my body with intention so I can actually show up for like you said, the job you were hired to do or the thing you were hired to do. Totally, right?
Oh, I agree 1,000%.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about calendar, but the first thing you should be putting in your calendar are your vacation time and your time off, like your wellness activities. You work your day job around those things. And also, you don't want to regret lifting your head up after a year has gone by and said, "Oh, I forgot to get with Sally. You know, I haven't seen her in forever." And, or missing time with your family. I mean, it's crazy how and I don't know if it's just the American culture. I know other countries and folks that I talk to, they think we're nuts. I mean, from, just all sorts of stuff. But I definitely feel like that. And then the boundaries, as you put too, like really understanding where the boundaries are with the time to reflect and have the spaciousness and not feel guilty. When you're on vacation, you should not be like carrying around your electronic leash. Like, it's okay to let go. I think we have comfort in chaos sometimes, and we have to relearn how to be with ourselves in a way.
And that can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable. It can be very eye-opening. It can be very unnerving. And it can feel like, I know women struggle with slowing down, right? Slowing down enough to actually feel and be present with yourself. Like, it really is a different kind of practice that actually takes practice, that actually takes, like, you have to work that muscle just like everything else. And I just appreciate you continuing to shed light on all of this, Lynn, because it's really powerful for women to hear. And it's powerful for women to hear, like, okay, two women who are just kind of talking here and talking about our experience, like, we've been through it and we understand how it feels and how important it is to get to this place of working with your physiology and your biology, because it just changes everything. So I know, Lynn, one of the things that you shared with me a little bit before we started kind of chatting today was a little bit about your sacred systems and just this idea of helping women make more but work less. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. Like, what are these sacred systems you talk about or teach women about? And how do you actually tactfully and tactly get to making more and working less? Because I think we hear that and it's like, wow, that's the dream. But what does it like actually looks like deep in the root? Like, how do you really, truly do that from a tactical standpoint? We'll get back to our conversation shortly after this message. If you are an overwhelmed and completely confused mom who just wants a simplified, easy to follow, and understandable plan when it comes to their health and wellness journey, then you're in the right place. As a wellness coach, I focus most on empowering women to follow a highly personalized and bio-individual plan that actually gets you results and that feels sustainable for your longevity. I'd love to invite you to set up a free coaching call to talk about your health and wellness journey. Head to erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call today. Again, that URL is erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call. And to make it even easier, head to the show notes of this podcast and click free coaching session to set up your call ASAP. Now let's dive back into the conversation.
So every business has 3 categories: sales, operations, and production. Doesn't matter if you're selling cupcakes or you're building airplanes, right? So really sitting down and looking at, it's likely if you are either the owner of the business or you're a head honcho in a division, you're in those 3 parts in some capacity. So writing down, how do you get sales? What is the actual process between sales and actually executing, making the thing or doing the thing that you're getting paid for? And you'd be surprised if you list all the steps from operations, sales, and production and circle the ones that you're involved in. It's very eye-opening because a lot of women are involved pretty much everything and feeling like they have to hold it all. So number 1, it's clarity. Like, what are you spending your time on? What are you doing? Okay. And then creating SOPs for all the steps. Creating SOPs, I think, was a key for me and my survival because one, it allowed me to see how I could simplify to amplify the processes and running the business. But it created a roadmap so I could start something called delegation. Because I remember having meetings so I could meet with my team and talk about projects, and literally they are watching me make sausage in real time because I'm going through the thought of whatever it is that I know we needed to get done as a team, and they can't read my mind. And so, after that, not having anything, just hoping that they're understanding what I'm trying to say. And when you give them a roadmap to follow, magic happens. It doesn't mean it's not a living document, right? But especially if it's a task that's repeatable, that you're doing at least once a week, giving it to someone else to do, it's going to free you up. And then you're really going to see what you need to do as the leader. You'll notice where the gaps are. So systems for everything, understanding your workflows, understanding, okay, yes, I know you've been doing it this way for the past 5 years, but is there a better way? And asking other people, what do they do? How do they simplify kind of how they're operating during the day, and learning from different leaders? So definitely, that was systems, writing it down, and also having accountability. You can have great systems and SOPs for things, but if you are not holding your staff or yourself accountable for them being followed, then it's a waste of time. So having a really good system like an Asana or a Monday.com, where you are putting the SOPs in action on the board and assigning them to a who, and meeting with the who's at least twice a week, maybe a 15-minute team meeting, really shows the light on what they're getting stuck with and who is doing what. Because I think that's the other thing. When you're in chaos as a leader, you're not really honing in on what each person's doing as well. And so, they're not going to complain. They don't want to bother you, or they might not be doing enough. And how can they help offload you even more? So systems are key.
Systems are key. And, I think one of the things that I want to recap, which I think translates into every facet of our lives, especially as women, is this idea of delegation, and how that, for whatever reason, can be this magic thing that drastically changes so much, but it can also be one of the hardest things to figure out. How do you take the step? How do you organize the things? And how do you comfortably and confidently delegate? I have also experienced this in my own life, and I've learned this the hard way, not only in business, but also as a mom of 4. I have reached thresholds where finally I was like, I am beyond being able to manage all this. I cannot do all of these things. So I'm just curious on the delegation side, what would you coach a woman through related to delegation and help her understand the value of it if she's struggling with doing that?
So I think it's important that women understand when they are delegating something, that they are explaining why the task they're delegating is important to the person, right? So I have my SOP forms. So when it comes to the SOPs, the first step of the delegation is really clearly having on your template what the title of the action is and why it's important. Because you as a leader might have a strategic reason why you want them to do the action, but they as the doer might have no idea how to bridge it or understand it. So putting it in writing why it's clear, and knowing that, of course, people might have different ways of doing it, but you're giving them bumpers, like in bowling for little kids, keeping them within the lines to make sure that the action is successful and within the boundaries of what you want to do. But it's Pareto's principle, right? The 80-20 rule. You really want them to start also owning the actions, because it helps their growth, their career growth. Looking at it as not so much like it's helping you, it's helping everyone. I think women have a hard time with that. Also thinking oh, I'm piling on. You're not. You're the leader. Right? They want comfort in knowing which way the yacht's going. And by you delegating and giving them the high end vision of where everything is headed, but also their piece in that by delegating the task and to get to the greater goal, that is success. So I think having that confidence that it's, you can own it. You can step into your power. You're not making their job harder. You're making their job easier because you're giving them a roadmap that they can use.
I'm curious, in your mind, how do you feel like delegation can also translate over to being really powerful in the home setting, right? Or in your relationships or in your marriage or with whatever it is, right? Like talk a little bit about how this concept translates into even larger pictures of our life, because it does need to be a practice that we use in a professional setting, but even beyond that too.
Oh, so well said. Because again, you're leveraging your time. I think it gives you clarity. Like if you know that you have to go to the grocery store every Thursday and you're dreading it, but you could just go online and order Whole Foods and magically have it either appear to your house or go and pick it up. And then you're just those mental cuts. It's really saving you, right? If you're married, really kind of sitting down with your partners, because it's likely there's things they like to do that you don't and vice versa. So why are you doing the thing that you hate, but your partner's like, oh my God, I so love cleaning. Like it's so weird, but I love it. Fine, go for it. Or, also realizing like having a masseuse come to your house, it's not expensive. It's, having a dog groomer come to your house. Guess what? You're not putting the dog in the car. I think we think like it's bougie or it's just like elitist to do that. And that is not the case. You need to eliminate your mental load as much as possible. And so again, what are those repeated actions that you're doing in life every single week that, are just weighing you down? And if you're finding yourself catching up the life admin stuff on the weekend, that's not bringing you joy either. Right. So what can you do to delegate? It's worth the money because you are so much more valued as an hourly figure, billable rate. You have to look at that. You have to look at that as how you're managing your life.
And it's just an important reminder because we cannot do it all. No matter what your specific situation may look like, no matter what capacity you're working, there has to be a threshold of asking for support, delegating in some way, remembering that you are not called to or meant to literally manage and do all the things. And, this is the most important thing that I want women to take out of this conversation and everything that you're sharing, Lynn, is this concept of when we actually learn how to work with our biology, we really start to embrace and realize that, I really was not created to carry all this. It's pushing me way over the edge. It's way too much in the realm of being burned out and emotionally stressed and taxed to the max. And my body hates it. My body really doesn't love it, because once you start to move away from that and work in this sense of like more aligned with what your biology needs, that really is a wake-up call. I don't know if you experienced that, but I really did. Like I really learned like, okay, my body is not meant to function the way I once was. And now that I've made these shifts, it's just night and day.
Well, you feel different. It's like the saying, if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your sickness. And that's how you and I went through it. And but feeling like how it feels to be good. You're not numb in the corporate chaos. And most people feel like how they feel every single day. It's that little carrot of retirement. And I'm just like, why don't we just kind of live life now? Like the carrot of let's kill ourselves until we're 65 and then we can chill. No. That's not why we're here. I feel like, we're souls having a human experience for sure. And, how can we really ground ourselves with that notion every single day? And once you start getting that clarity and get that spaciousness in your calendar and your business, then you're going to start really thinking about other things. You're going to start weaving in that spirituality and other things in your life. Your heart's going to start, talking to you. I think also too, like nervous system work is so underrated.
It's so underrated.
And just, I think that's the powerful conversation too, that talking to women about your nervous system and how much your parasympathetic, sympathetic, like how it actually intertwines with your day. So many things, hormones, the food, all of it, as you teach. I mean, we're not dealing with that at work. We somehow played it and just say, oh, well, we just don't need to worry about that till later. And it affects everything,
And eventually it catches up. The thing I want to recall that literally struck my heart was when you said, we are souls living a human experience. And if we're not careful, we miss it.
So true.
Like if we're not careful, everything's just going to keep flying on by, and we're not going to actually feel and live what all of us have really worked so hard to even do or experience, And so that kind of brings me into this next level of our conversation, which is this concept of boundaries.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked a lot about delegation. We've talked a lot about systems. We've talked a lot about the power of learning how to work with your biology. So let's move into talking a little bit about boundaries. I know you've shared how boundaries are really more protection versus like a punishment, or versus like trying to be difficult, right? So share a little bit about why, in your experience, but also when you talk to women, this idea of creating boundaries is so important, and how we don't need to do that with this over explaining kind of mentality, or feeling like we need to be guilty for some reason. Like we do it because it's a part of how we actually work with our bodies and our brains. And we do it because it's a crucial part to actually protecting our peace and our wellness. So share a little bit about the boundary component.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about like client perspective, right? So you're at a job and you have to have meetings for projects and all the things. You're working around your chronotype, you have good systems, you're delegating all that. And the clients want to have access to you. They're calling, they're texting, the clients text now, like all the things. And you're the one that has to set where the goalpost is and where the fence is. So really sitting down and saying, okay, how am I feeling right now in my body? How am I feeling about work during the day? Do I feel wired and tired? Or, do I have anxiety when so-and-so is reaching out to me? And really sitting there and saying, why? Is this an energy vampire client? Is this one sucking the life out of me? Please and thank you are free. Do I really need to work with this individual? Like really asking those questions. Because I feel a lot of women will try to change how services are done, or their access to themselves from the client to make the client happy. If a client is like that, they are never going to be happy. And it's okay to quote unquote fire a client. You're not letting anybody down. You have to protect yourself and your system first. Also with staff, if you're hiring someone or working with someone and they just for some reason aren't in alignment with the energetic exchange of the rest of the team, you might just have to say, hey, we have to part ways, because if you're constantly having to be involved in either settling something that they misspeak, or they're not performing or jiving with the rest of the team, it will cost you and your business. It will cost your mental and physical energy too. And then in life, like we all have things that, life is lifing. We all have things that are going on in our life and challenges, and just because people are related to you doesn't mean you need to hang out with them. And really understanding like it's okay to be different. It's okay to say that, hey, every time I hang out with this person, I just walk away feeling horrible. It doesn't fill up my energetic cup. It's okay. You're not quitting, for saying that. And I feel like the boundaries are really you getting clarity on what you want out of your life. How do you want to feel every day? What do you want to experience? And what are you letting in to help support and nourish that?
Yes. So good. I love that so much. And it's something that I think we all learn in some way, shape, or form, likely the hard way, right? It's just one of those things that we slowly start to wake up and understand the importance of why they matter. And I love that you talked about how you just have to give yourself permission to really check in and ask, how do I feel? Where is my energy at with this? Like, where am I spending my time? Where do I need to create more white space? Whatever it is. And, I talk about all of these things with my clients so much. And I just appreciate you reinforcing and talking about this, especially from the leadership side of things for women in business, because there are so many parallels that we can carry in so many aspects of our lives. And this idea of boundaries is just crucial for overall health and wellness and just being able to show up.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, Maria.
And what's your why? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why?
Yep.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you working at the job you're working at? Why are you dealing with the people that you're dealing with? Why are you not
Yeah.
allowing boundaries in? That
Yeah.
bubbles up with those questions.
100%. And such good reflection, which like you have to really do that reflective work so you can continue to figure out like what really is the best balance for you, what really feels the most aligned for you. And, you know, one of the things I want to move into before we kind of wrap up is this concept of when women are operating more out of alignment and in survival mode. Talk a little bit about what that typically looks like. Like, what does that feel like? I know you talked briefly about nervous system work, which we can touch on briefly too, but talk a little bit about what it feels like when you're out of alignment. Cause I know what it feels like. And I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit with the audience because it's so important to know.
So for me, being out of alignment is reacting to life, not being intentional with it. Reacting to meetings, reacting to your time, reacting to people, not having spaciousness, not having that time to actually sit and feel. You're just kind of numb and you're in it over and over and over. Being exhausted. We talked about wired and tired earlier, where you're like, oh my gosh, like my nervous system is fried. I'm so freaking tired, but I can't sleep well because I'm thinking about 3 a.m, writing an email to myself so I don't forget about that thing that I forgot to deal with while I was at work and being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right? Not feeling good about how you look because you're probably mostly not eating. And when what you are eating isn't good food, it's Frankenfood. Right?
Yeah.
So you're looking like your skin's your largest organ, right, Aaron? So it's like, if you're not feeding it good stuff, it's going to show. So you're not feeling good about yourself. And then you're like, repeat it the next day. That's what it feels like. And feeling like you're drowning and never going to catch up. And that I don't want that for women. It doesn't have to be that way. When I had really good systems in place, so then I could delegate, that created space. When I created space, I had way more clarity. When I had way more clarity, I was able to better serve my staff and my clients. And also not feel guilty about me putting myself first in my wellness. It's more of an investment in the way that I want to operate, both in my personal and professional life. That's the message. And slowing down, almost feeling like you're in the matrix because it feels weird. You aren't like drinking from the fire hose. And, and I tell women all of the time, I'm like, it's going to feel strange for you. You're going to be like, this isn't normal. And you're going to have a hard time sitting with yourself because it's not normal, especially with our phones and social media and having a TV on and scanning and all the things. We are already conditioned to not really sit with ourselves. So really flipping it from reactionary to intentional with your time, from reacting to just throwing food down my throat to being intentional about what I'm putting at the end of my fork and eating, from reacting to throwing myself in the car and working really late and working on weekends to being intentional with, okay, what am I doing this week? What is the goal for this week? Who can I delegate to this week to help offset? Then the magic happens because you're calling in your home frequency, right? People start resonating more with you. You're attracting better clients because you're not giving off the desperate vibe of, oh my gosh, I need to do everything because if I don't, they won't pay me. The scarcity goes away. And that's where the abundance truly happens. You will work less. You will make more. You'll be more abundant with your happiness and joy. And that's really what it's about. And I feel like using your feminine intuition to tap in and really listen to what your heart wants. What is your soul purpose? What are your soul skills? What are you supposed to be doing? You already know. You just have to honor it.
Yeah, you do have to honor it. Lynn, I cannot get enough of what you teach. Like, it's so profound. And like you said, you don't want women to feel like they just are supposed to grind through the day and totally ignore their body. And I feel the exact same way, which is why I've loved this conversation, because women need to hear this message over and over and over. It is not the common narrative, unfortunately, but the more we can share our stories and the power of, like you said, really tapping into your feminine intuition, like it truly starts to transform how you show up, how clear you feel, how energized you feel, how intentional you feel, how different your life really flows. And this is the gift that I want women to continue to get exposure to. So Lynn, thank you so much for sharing your incredible perspective and work today. I am just so grateful for you.
Oh,
So grateful for
I'm
you.
grateful for you, Erin. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Will you quickly share before we sign off where people can find you online, how they can get connected to the work you're doing, and just how they can learn more about getting exposure to what you share?
Absolutely. So my Instagram handle is at I am Lynn Everhart, and Everhart is spelled Everhart. And lynneverhart.com. You can find me in any events that I have. I have in-person retreats. I have my own podcast as well, the Lead Her Shift podcast. So you guys can hop on over there too and listen to some interviews and stories. So yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. And we will make sure everything is linked in the show notes of this podcast, including the free quiz that Lynn talked about, because I want to do that. I'm super excited. We'll make sure the Chronotype quiz is in the links of the show notes. So if you're interested in that too, like learn about your chronotype and connect more with Lynn. Like she's doing incredible work to help empower women with this idea of working with your biology. And Lynn, I can't thank you enough for your time today, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I know balancing time and energy can be a challenge, and I'm so proud of you for listening in and investing in your wellness journey. I feel incredibly grateful to connect with you and for the opportunity to share more knowledge, stories, and encouragement related to all things wellness. I would love to hear how this podcast has served you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review on either iTunes or Spotify. Your support truly means the world to me and helps me reach more women just like you and me who are looking to transform their health from the inside out. Plus, when you share this episode with a friend, we invite more women in to learn alongside us. What a gift. Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we know, the better we can do. For ourselves, for our families, and our future. Well done on taking the step towards a healthier, happier you. Until next week, stay empowered and stay well.